The grand assembly hall of Xyler hummed with the low thrum of 1,000 different life support systems. Before the assembled delegates of the Galactic Concordance stood the Cathar warlord, Kravorn, his chitinous armor shimmering under the synthesized sunlight. He was the epitome of a predator, a being forged in the crucible of a death world where only the merciless survived. He was speaking of humanity. He projected a holographic image for all to see. It showed a human soldier, mud-caked and exhausted, standing over a defeated Grorn combatant. The Grorn, a rhino-like species known for its brutal charges, was disarmed, its primary weapon broken. The human, instead of delivering the killing blow as Concordance law and the law of nature demanded, was offering the creature a water canteen. Kravorn's voice, a gravelly subvocalization translated for the assembly, was filled with a predator's derision. You see before you the fatal flaw of the human species. They are soft. They are compromised by an illogical emotional response they call mercy. They stand at the precipice of victory and falter. This is not the behavior of an ascendant species. This is the behavior of evolutionary dead end. True predators, the forces that shape the cosmos, do not show mercy. It is a weakness that will see your fledgling empire extinguished before it has truly begun. The chamber murmured in agreement. The delegates, from the silicon-based architects of Cygnus X1 to the gaseous philosophers of the Andromeda Nebula, all understood this fundamental truth. The universe was a hunt. Mercy was a malfunction. Seated in the human delegation, Ambassador Aris Thorn didn't even flinch. He sat beside a quiet, unassuming man in a simple gray suit, a man whose name was not on any official roster. As the Cathar warlord postured, the man leaned over to the ambassador. The man's name was Elias, and his official title, if he had one, was buried under so many layers of black ink classification it had ceased to exist. Elias watched the hologram, his eyes betraying nothing. He had seen scenes like it 1,000 times. He had been the one holding the gun. He had been the one offering the water. And he had been the one who pulled the trigger anyway. He leaned closer to the ambassador, his voice no louder than the rustle of dry leaves, yet it seemed to cut through the entire hall's hum. "The warlord is right," he whispered, a chilling placidness in his tone. "Predators don't show mercy." He paused, letting the statement hang in the air between them. Then he delivered the truth that the galaxy, in its rigid biological simplicity, could never comprehend. That's why we had to become something else entirely. That's why we became Apex. This is not a story about the weakness of mercy. This is a story about the terrifying power of choice. It's about understanding what it truly means to be the most dangerous thing in the universe. It's not about having the sharpest claws or the strongest armor. It's about possessing the one weapon no other species has ever mastered. The ability to be a savior in one moment and an extinction event in the next, and to decide with cold, calculating reason which is required. The galaxy believes predation is a state of being. Humanity is here to teach them that for us, it is a tool, and we are the only ones who can decide when to put it down. Part 1. The fallacy of the single-state predator. The first truth the galaxy fails to grasp is the fallacy of the single-state predator. Look at the Cathar. Look at the raptors of Veridia Prime or the shadow stalkers of Nocturne. They are magnificent killing machines. Their every cell, every synapse, every instinct is honed for a single purpose: to hunt, to kill, to dominate. They are locked in this state. A Cathar warlord cannot suddenly decide to become a poet. A shadow stalker cannot lay down its claws to study astrophysics. They are prisoners of their own biological perfection. They are predictable. Humanity is anything but. We are a species of chaotic, brilliant, terrifying duality. A human can spend 30 years as a farmer coaxing life from barren soil, knowing the name of every wild flower and the song of every native bird. He can be a being of profound peace, a creator, a nurturer. But if you threaten his farm, if you threaten his family, that same man will burn your world to the ground and use the ashes to salt his fields, and he will sleep like a baby that night. This isn't a contradiction. It is the core of our strength. We are not single-state beings. We choose our state. The farmer, the doctor, the artist, the engineer, these are not our definitive forms. They are roles. And the one role we have perfected above all others, the one that lies dormant but never absent, is the role of the monster. Consider the cautionary tale of Xylos 7, a planet that the Concordance had designated as a verdant paradise. It was given to a human colonization effort, a team of a mere 500 souls, mostly botanists, geologists, and atmospheric engineers. Their mission was peaceful, to terraform, to cultivate, to create a new Eden. For 2 years, they did just that. They cataloged new species of bioluminescent fungi and cultivated orchards of alien fruit. They were artists painting on a planetary canvas. But Xylos 7 had a native apex predator, a creature the colonists called a shrike. It was a 6-limbed, lightning-fast pack hunter. For 2 years, the shrikes and the humans maintained a respectful distance. But a change in the planet's seasons drove the shrikes into a frenzy, and they began to view the human settlement as a source of food. The first attack was brutal. 17 colonists were lost. The Galactic Concordance, observing from afar, saw the inevitable play out. A species of soft creators being devoured by a species of hard-wired killers. They classified the colony as a loss and prepared to write a eulogy for human ambition. They failed to understand who they were watching. The head botanist, a woman named Dr. Eris Thorne's great-grandmother, Lena, had spent 2 years lovingly crossbreeding native flora to create a hybrid that could produce a potent medicinal compound. After the attack, she locked herself in her lab. She wasn't weeping. She was working. She took her research on the plant's cellular structure and, with the help of the colony's chemical engineer, resynthesized the compound. It was no longer medicinal. The new version was a neurotoxin so potent it could kill a shrike in seconds, delivered through the air as a fine pollen. The colony's geologist, a man who had been mapping subterranean caves for geothermal energy, repurposed his seismic sensors. He no longer looked for heat. He programmed them to detect the specific weight and gait of a shrike pack, creating an early warning system that covered the entire valley. The engineers who had been designing irrigation systems turned their knowledge of fluid dynamics to a darker purpose. They weaponized the very environment the shrikes called home. They laced the riverbeds with Lena's neuropollen. They used the seismic sensors to predict the pack's movements and divert the water flow, creating invisible, odorless kill zones. They didn't build walls or turrets. They turned the planet itself into a death trap. Within a month, the shrike attacks stopped. A Concordance scout ship arriving to confirm the colony's demise found something far more disturbing. The human colony was thriving. The shrikes, the planet's undisputed apex predator for 1 million years, were gone, not just pushed back. Gone, extinct. The scout captain, a member of a species that prided itself on logic, sent a query to Dr. Lena Thorne. "Your records show you are a botanist, a creator of life. How could you orchestrate such a complete and total eradication?" Lena's reply was uploaded to the Concordance public record, where it remains a source of academic horror to this day. "You misunderstand. My expertise is not in creating life. My expertise is in understanding how life works. And because I understand how it works, I also understand, better than anyone, how to make it stop. The shrikes were a threat. They operated on instinct. They had one mode, hunt. We had 1 million modes. We chose the one that guaranteed our survival. We became the predator they could never imagine, the one that could think like a gardener. That is the human advantage. Our predator isn't a separate entity. It's a tool in the toolbox. We can be the farmer, the poet, the peacemaker. But when the time comes, we open the box, and the galaxy remembers that the same hands that can gently tend a seedling are the same hands that can engineer a plague. Part 2. Mercy as the ultimate power play. The Cathar warlord called mercy a weakness. He and the rest of the galaxy see it as a failure of the killer instinct, an emotional error. They believe the only value in a defeated foe is a dead foe. This is the logic of an animal. It is not the logic of an apex. Humanity understands a truth that terrifies a universe of simple predators. True mercy is not an act of compassion. It is the ultimate expression of power. To kill a defeated enemy is to admit they are still a threat. It is an act of fear. You kill them because you are afraid of what they might do if you let them live. It is an admission of parity. To spare a defeated enemy, to show them mercy when you have the absolute right and power to destroy them, is to send a message far more devastating than death. It is to say, you are so far beneath me that your existence is irrelevant to my safety. I can let you live and it changes nothing. Your life or death is a matter of my whim, not your threat. It is the ultimate act of psychological dominance. It doesn't just break an enemy's body, it shatters their spirit. It replaces their hatred with a soul-crushing combination of debt and insignificance. There is no better example than the Vorlag campaign. The Vorlag were a species of sentient crystal, a proud, martial race whose entire culture was built on the concept of resonant imperative. To them, combat was a sacred frequency. Victory was achieved by shattering your opponent. To be defeated was to have your frequency silenced, and execution was the expected honorable outcome. They saw humanity's organic, soft bodies as dissonant and weak. They declared war. The war was brutal. The Vorlag's crystalline ships were resilient, their tactics unforgiving. But they were predictable. They met every problem with overwhelming force. Humanity adapted. We didn't try to shatter their ships. We developed sonic weapons that found their resonant frequency and shook them apart from the inside. We didn't meet their charges head-on. We used guerrilla tactics, turning their rigid formations into a weakness. The final battle took place in the orbit of their homeworld, Xylos. The human fleet, under the command of Admiral Jorik, decimated the Vorlag armada. He captured their grand shard, their warlord king, a magnificent crystalline entity named Xyler. According to millennia of Vorlag tradition, Xyler was to be brought before Admiral Jorik and shattered. It was the only honorable conclusion. His shards would be returned to his people as a testament to his glorious end. Instead, Jorik had Xyler brought to the bridge of his flagship, the crystalline being pulsed with defiant light, expecting annihilation. Admiral Jorik didn't even draw a weapon. He had his medical staff, experts in crystalline biology, a field they had invented 3 months prior, repair the fractures in Xyler's form sustained during the battle. They polished his surface. Then Jorik did something that broke the Vorlag people. He handed Xyler a small, perfectly cut diamond. On its facets were etched the entire human genome and the full text of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. "Your war is over," Jorik said, his voice calm. "We are not going to shatter you. We are not going to enslave your people. We are not going to bombard your world. We are sending you back. Go home. Teach your people a new frequency, the frequency of creation, not destruction. This conflict has cost us both. We will leave a single satellite in orbit, not to watch you, but to listen. If you ever need help rebuilding, if you face a famine or a plague, send a transmission. We will answer." Xyler was then returned to his people, healed and whole, carrying a gift. This act of mercy was more destructive to the Vorlag culture than 1,000 plasma torpedoes. Their entire identity was built on the honor of a glorious death in battle. They had no framework for a victor who not only spared them but offered to help them. They weren't conquered, they were nullified. Their warrior spirit, the very core of their being, had nothing to push against. Hatred requires an enemy, but the humans had refused to be their enemy. The humans had become their patrons. The Vorlag never fought another war. They became a client state of the Human Federation, not out of fear, but out of a profound and unshakable cultural crisis. They were haunted by a debt they could never repay. Their greatest warriors spent their lives contemplating the human gift, trying to understand the mind of a creature that could hold their extinction in its hand, and chose, instead, to offer a blueprint for a better future. That is the power the Cathar cannot comprehend. Mercy is not weakness. It is the most refined and brutal weapon in the human arsenal. It is the power to conquer an enemy's soul, to unmake their entire reason for being without firing a single shot. Any brute can kill, but only an apex can forgive, because forgiveness, when wielded correctly, is a chain that lasts for eternity. Part 3, The Predator of Predators, Hunting Ideas. The universe is full of predators that hunt flesh and blood. They are masters of the chase, of the ambush, of the kill. They are limited by this. Their influence extends only as far as their claws can reach. Humanity discovered a more potent hunting ground. We don't just hunt creatures, we hunt concepts. We hunt strategies, we hunt technologies, we hunt ideologies. Our predation is not physical, it is mimetic. We are the apex predators of the mind. A Cathar can kill a human, but it cannot kill the idea of humanity. A human, however, can study the Cathar. We can learn its biology, its tactics, its psychology. We can analyze its strengths and turn them into weaknesses. Then we can codify that knowledge, put it in a data bank, and transmit it to 1 billion other humans across the galaxy. In an instant, 1 billion farmers, doctors, and poets become expert Cathar hunters. Our greatest weapon is not the plasma rifle. It is the autopsy. It is the after-action report. It is the research paper. We assimilate, we deconstruct, and we improve upon everything we touch. When we encounter a new species, our first instinct isn't just to determine if it's a threat. It's to understand how it works. And as Dr. Lena Thorne so chillingly stated, once we understand how something works, we understand how to make it stop. This came to a head with the arrival of the Cygnian hive. The hive was a Gestalt consciousness, a swarm of billions of insectoid drones guided by a single, powerful psychic mind. They consumed entire star systems, stripping planets of all resources before moving on. They were the galaxy's boogeyman, an unstoppable tide of consumption. The galactic concordance threw its fleets against them and failed. How do you fight an enemy that has no command structure to decapitate, no morale to break? How do you fight a living ocean? The other species brought bigger ships, stronger shields, more powerful cannons. They tried to fight the hive as a physical threat. They were losing. Humanity assigned the problem to a special projects division known as Prometheus Command. They didn't task a general with the problem. They tasked a linguist, a sociologist, and a neuropsychologist. Their leader was a woman named Dr. Alara Vance, Elia's grandmother. She didn't look at weapon specifications. She looked at the idea of the hive. She saw what the others missed. The hive's greatest strength, its perfect, instantaneous psychic unity, was also its most profound vulnerability. It was a mind with no firewall, no sense of self, no defenses against a concept it had never encountered. The hive knew unity. It knew hunger, it knew consumption, it did not know loneliness, it did not know hope, it did not know love, it did not know the individual. Ilara Vance didn't design a bomb, she designed a story. Working with a team of artists and writers, she created what they called a mimetic warhead. It was a compressed psychic broadcast, a Trojan horse of pure information. It contained no viruses, no malicious code. It contained the life story of a single, ordinary human being, a fictional man named Jacob. The broadcast began with Jacob's birth. The hive felt the singular, selfish, beautiful love of a mother for her child. They experienced Jacob's first steps, the terror and triumph of individual achievement. They felt his first heartbreak, a pain that was not shared, a pain that was his alone. They experienced his ambition, his failures, his quiet moments of joy, his profound grief at the loss of his parents, his eventual love for a wife and the birth of his own child, bringing the cycle full circle. It was a story of one life, one tiny, insignificant, glorious life. When the mimetic warhead was broadcast into the hive's psychic network, the effect was catastrophic. For a mind that had only ever known we, the concept of I, was a poison beyond comprehension. Drones on 1,000 battlefronts suddenly hesitated. The perfect unity fractured. A drone fighting on a desolate moon would suddenly be overwhelmed with the memory of Jacob's son learning to ride a bicycle. A bioship consuming a planet would be paralyzed by the feeling of Jacob's grief. The hive mind began to experience individuality, and it drove it insane. It was a billion voices screaming in a chorus of one, suddenly forced to listen to a billion different songs. The Cygnian hive didn't retreat. It collapsed. It turned on itself. The living ocean became a chaotic storm, its purpose forgotten, its unity shattered by the story of a man who never existed. Humanity hadn't just defeated the hive. They had hunted and killed its very soul. They had proven that the most dangerous predator in the universe isn't the one that consumes planets, but the one that consumes ideas. Any species can build a better weapon. Only humanity could turn a biography into an instrument of genocide. We don't just win wars, we change the fundamental nature of our enemies until they are no longer what they were. We hunt the very definition of what it means to be alive. Part 4, the apex is the one who remembers. Perhaps the most terrifying human trait of all is the one that seems the most mundane, our memory. An animal predator kills out of instinct or hunger. The event happens and it is over. The gazelle that escapes the lion does not worry that the lion will remember its face, track its lineage, and plan a multi-generational revenge scheme. The lion holds no grudges. It simply hunts again. Humanity is different. Humanity remembers everything. We document, we record. We build monuments to our tragedies. We write history books so that we never, ever forget a slight. An attack on a human outpost isn't a simple raid for resources. It is an insult that is entered into a ledger that is passed down through generations, a ledger that will one day be balanced. Other species live in the present. Humanity lives along a timeline of cause, effect, and eventual, unavoidable retribution. This philosophy is embodied by a clandestine branch of the Human Federation known simply as the Office of Historical Reckoning. Its agents are not soldiers or spies. They are librarians, historians, and actuaries. They are the galaxy's most patient and unforgiving bookkeepers. Their most famous case file is simply titled Event 73B, New Canaan. 2 centuries ago, a new human colony on the planet New Canaan was establishing itself. It was a peaceful, agrarian society of 50,000 souls. They were wiped out in a single night by a nomadic marauder species known as the Raks. The Raks were cosmic pirates. They struck fast, took everything of value, and slaughtered anyone who got in their way. They used experimental temporal drives that allowed them to make short, untraceable hops through space-time, making them impossible to track. To the Raks, the destruction of New Canaan was just another Tuesday. A profitable raid quickly forgotten. For humanity, it was an entry in a book. The Office of Historical Reckoning was assigned the file. For 200 years, the Raks continued their raids across the outer rim, growing bolder, thinking their methods made them ghosts. They never realized they were being hunted not by warships, but by data points. The Office of Historical Reckoning collected every scrap of information. Eyewitness accounts from a dozen different species, fragmentary energy signatures from their temporal drives. They built a profile not of the Raks' ships, but of the mathematical chaos their drives left in the fabric of spacetime. They fed this data into a quantum supercomputer for generations, building a probability model. They weren't tracking where the Raks were. They were calculating where they would be. The story culminates with Agent Kaito, a remembrancer whose great-great-grandmother was one of the historians who first opened the New Canaan file. After 2 centuries of work, the computer finally found a pattern, a nexus point. The Raks, for all their chaotic jumps, had a central hub they returned to, a rogue planet hidden inside a dense nebula where they would hibernate and repair their drives. The Federation could have sent the Grand Armada. They could have glassed the planet from orbit. That is not the way of the reckoning. That is the way of a simple predator. Agent Kaito arrived at the Raks Nexus in a single, unarmed diplomatic ship. He didn't hail them with threats. He opened a universal broadcast channel. First, he transmitted the complete, high-definition sensor logs of the New Canaan massacre. The sounds of the slaughter, the panicked cries, the roar of Raks' weapons. He broadcasted on a loop for 1 full hour. Then his own voice, calm and clear as a final judgment, spoke into the silence. "We are the people of New Canaan. We remember." He did not fire a weapon. He released a single probe. This probe did not carry an explosive. It carried a tailored retrovirus, reverse-engineered from the Raks' own temporal technology. The virus didn't harm living tissue. It infected and neutralized the specific exotic isotopes required for their space-time drives to function. It didn't just disable their ships. It erased the technological knowledge from their systems and rendered the necessary fuel inert on a quantum level. The Raks were not killed. They were marooned. They were trapped on a single, barren world in the middle of nowhere, their greatest advantage, their ability to run, stripped from them forever. The sentence wasn't death. It was imprisonment on a planetary scale, a prison built not of walls, but of memory. The message to the galaxy was chillingly clear. You can fight humanity. You might even win a battle. You might even destroy a world, but we will remember. And one day, whether it is a year from now or 5 centuries from now, a quiet ship will appear on your doorstep and deliver the bill. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We do not operate on your time scale. We are the architects of history, and we always balance the books. A conclusion. The Cathar warlord stood in the Grand Assembly Hall and saw mercy as a weakness. The delegates of 1,000 worlds nodded in agreement, secure in their simple, brutal understanding of the universe. They saw a predator as a creature of instinct, a being locked into its nature. They were all wrong. They looked at humanity and saw a contradiction, a species of poets and engineers who could become monsters, a species that offered water to a defeated foe, a species that hunted ideas and held grudges for centuries. They could not reconcile these things because they were looking for a simple predator. They were looking for an animal. They should have been looking for a god, not a god of creation, but a god of consequence. The truth whispered by Elias in that hall is the fundamental doctrine of human power. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We are not the most resilient. We are the most adaptable. Our apex status is not derived from our physical form, but from our terrifying mental and moral flexibility. It is the ability to choose. The choice to be a farmer or a destroyer. The choice to offer mercy as a tool of psychological dominance or to deliver a cold, calculated extinction. The choice to hunt a creature or to hunt the very idea that gives it strength. The choice to forget an insult or to carve it into the annals of history as a debt that will be paid in blood and fire. The other species of the galaxy are players in the game. They play by the rules of nature, the rules of instinct. Humanity's ultimate power is that we are not just players. We are the ones who write the rules. We are the ones who can look at the entire game board and decide to flip it over. The Cathar was right. Predators don't show mercy. They are simple, predictable, and ultimately limited. Humanity transcended that limitation. We looked at the predator's savagery and the saint's compassion, and we did not choose one. We chose both. We put them both in our toolbox, and we became the only beings in the universe who could look upon another living thing and not ask, "Is it friend or foe?" but ask a much more terrifying question. What do we want it to be? Understand this power within yourself, the capacity for profound kindness and the capacity for absolute, unyielding resolve. This is not a contradiction to be resolved. It is the engine of your potential. Stop thinking like a simple predator, bound by impulse and the immediate moment. Stop acting like prey, defined only by your reaction to others. Start thinking like an apex, the one who remembers, the one who chooses, the one who understands that true power isn't about being the monster all the time. It's about having the monster inside you on a leash and having the absolute authority to decide when to let it go.